Hi, my name is Randy Edmonds. I'm from the Kiowa and Caddo Nations of Oklahoma. Today I'll be talking about how some of the resources were created in the urban areas across the nation, especially in Los Angeles, California. In 1952, the Bureau of Indian Affairs established a relocation program, which brought many American Indians from reservations in urban areas, or rather rural areas across the nation, into major urban areas, big cities in America. And one of those areas that probably had the most relocation to their area was the Los Angeles area. There was probably, maybe 10,000 people a month coming into Los Angeles from various Indian reservations across the nation. We had Sioux, Navajos, Kiowas, Caddos, Delawares, many tribes, tribes from Southwest area, from Hopis, Pueblos, Navajos, that came to Los Angeles for training in vocation and also seeking employment opportunities. And they brought us in after the 1952 creation of the relocation program, around 1954 on, up to about 1970. And in that period of time, thousands of American Indians were brought into the Los Angeles area. And we lived in many different places across Los Angeles. They didn't want us to congregate in one central area. They wanted us to be spread out in the suburbs of Los Angeles so we would assimilate quicker. They basically wanted to take the white out of us, or at least assimilate us into the white system, so that we would know how to take care of ourselves physically, mentally, and spiritually. And in that transitional process, we did run into some problems. And those problems were health, education, economics, spiritual kinds of conditions that weren't there for us Indians, because we were culturally and traditionally different from the main society. And so a lot of us came together in a community in the late 1950s and early 1960s to advocate on behalf of our Indian communities for education, health, economics, and business development, as well as spiritual development. And in the early 1960s, Senator Alvarez from Washington, D.C. came to the California area and had congressional hearings in San Francisco to talk about the needs of American Indians that made the relocation program part of their life, and what the transition problems were for Indians to assimilate into the mainstream of society. And one of those problems was health. Many of the tribal groups, when they came to Los Angeles, after they went into school or got a job, were disbanded by the Bureau of Indian Affairs. They just let you go. And if you had a health problem, you had nowhere to go. You try to go to regular health institutions in the city, but if they found out that you were a relocatee from the BIA, they turned you down and said, you go to the Bureau of Indian Affairs for your assistance. And we had a lot of trouble with keeping our people healthy because of that. So we told Senator Alvarez that this was the main issue in at least the Los Angeles area, and come to find out, all the testimony that took place in San Francisco from other urban centers was pretty much the same thing. Was health, also transportation was a big problem for Indians to get around in the city and go to work and meet their obligations on a daily basis. And so during that period of time, Health, Education, and Welfare Agency, which was the big agency, was the one that began to look at the conditions that was described by many Indian groups in the urban area through the congressional hearing that health problem was a main obstacle to assimilation. In 1965, a group of Indians in Los Angeles came together and founded the Urban Clinic in Compton, California, and that was 1965. And were contracted by Health, Education, and Welfare to create a Indian clinic that would assist in a lot of the health issues that were being brought to the clinic from people that were sick or needed health needs. And also in that same time in 1965, Senator Robert Kennedy came and helped us open the first clinic. And at that clinic we had different services: medical, dental, social behavior, other kinds of needs that we found that were needed in our community to assist in that assimilation. And so that was, I believe, the first American Indian clinic in the country. Pretty much a model for other clinics to become established in many urban areas. But that continued on and became a major part of the Los Angeles area as far as health concerns were needed for our native community. And down in San Diego, pretty much the same situation applied. In San Diego, they had the Americans for Indian and Future Traditions, which was the Indian Center here in San Diego, which got the grant from Indian Health Services out of Washington, D.C. to establish a clinic. And the first clinic was in San Diego. It was actually two places that were established, one on Navajo Road and another was on one of the streets near the Education Center in San Diego. And they were the clinics that took care of Indian health needs under the Americans for Future Indian Traditions. And that continued on for a period of time. And then that particular program disappeared for a period of time because of loss of funds and the inability by the groups that were operating that program. In 1974, or rather 1979, a new initiative took place to reestablish the Indian Clinic program in San Diego. The major leadership on on that creation and founding of that community-based program was our good friend, Mr. Joe Renteria. And he's the one that spearheaded up, I think, from the community, the creation and founding of the Indian Clinic there on First Avenue in San Diego. And it also provided the various health issues that were necessary to take care of the needs of our Indian community here in San Diego. And that continues today. It's over 40 years old. It has been able to provide medical services to thousands of Native Americans that reside in the urban area of San Diego. It also helps non-Indians as well in their health needs. And it's a wonderful program that does many things for the community. It has medical services, it has dental, it has behavioral science, it has youth programs, it has other drug-related alcoholism programs, spiritual programs that help our Indian people that need spiritual relief or spiritual enhancement in their lives. And it continues to be a part of our community. It's over 40 years old, and it continues to grow. It has purchased the building that they live in or operate out of, and also surrounding areas. It continues to provide the necessary services to the Indian and non-Indian communities of San Diego. And so it was a growth of the clinic operations founded back in 1965 when a group of people came together in Los Angeles to advocate on behalf of Indian people in need for health services. And now across Indian country, in every major city of Native Americans or American Indians, there are clinics established to provide medical services to our Native people in Denver and Dallas, Texas, and Ohio, and New York, San Francisco, Oakland, Los Angeles, San Diego, all the major urban areas across Indian country has some form of medical program. It has also extended to the reservational system, where they now also have their own clinical programs that provide medical assistance to reservation Indians. That all came about in the 60s. A lot of that credit goes to President Nixon, who established the self-determination programs, which allowed American Indians to decide their own destiny by creating programs that would benefit the kinds of programs that were needed on a reservation as well as the urban areas. And so today, those programs still exist in many urban areas across the United States, as well as reservational systems. And we thank those early pioneers for creating or having the sense of knowing what was needed to help us make that transition from reservation life, rural life, to urban life. The experience that we have gained throughout the years with these programs has provided the necessary health programs that continues today and hopefully will continue into the future. Was that 30 minutes?
That was about probably 15 minutes. You can go with 10 minutes or 5 minutes if you want.
Some of the things that those of us that were considered the pioneers of urban experience and creation of resources were the Indian centers as well. Those Indian centers were the ones that were to provide economic, social, traditional, and spiritual initiatives to urban Indians that they make the transition. Spiritually, many of the tribes that came to urban areas brought with them their own spiritual values. In Los Angeles, at my time that I was there, we had the Creeks, the Navajos, and then other Indian groups that assisted in creating churches that would provide traditional singing, traditional awareness of their culture, and that was before the initiative by the health, education, and welfare programs that provided the clinics and the Indian centers. They were already established when I was there. And they brought together many Indian tribes. Another one was the IHRC, Indian Revival Center, which brought together many different tribes for religious purposes. And they allowed in the church the ability of those tribes to sing their own songs in the way that they remember, so that they could stay in contact with their own language, their own songs, and their own spirituality. The Choctaws had a similar program. The Creeks, the Cherokees, the Chickasaws, they all had their own similar programs for bringing together their own native members. We also had a large church, a Southern Baptist church, where many of us that were Southern Baptists congregated every Sunday to pray, to share a meal together. We also had a youth program, which we had recreational services where we had basketball programs, softball programs, volleyball, and other programs that would allow us to have recreational services within the community to come together as Indian people to help us make that transition from reservation life to urban life. And that continued on, and as of now, which is 2020, there are still churches in some of the major urban areas that still exist that provide the religious and spiritual needs of Native Americans to continue to be in contact with their tribal groups. They even have kind of a pan-Indianism program where each tribe borrows from the other tribe to learn their songs, learn their spirituality, and help each other with their spirituality and knowledge of different tribes. And that continues today as well. There are many things that have taken place in the urban area because of the Indian Center concept and the clinic concept. The United Indian Development Association, which was a business development program which helped Indian small business people create and found their own business development and their own businesses where they provided businesses to the outer world, the big world, the society, and they were assisted by the United Indian Development Association, which would help them and tutor them so they could learn business development learn the techniques of business, and create small businesses so that Indians would be a part of the business world in at least Los Angeles. And that continues today as well, where many small business people were able to work through UIDA and learn the techniques of business and also provide business to the society at large. So right now we have many Indian business people that still exist in Los Angeles, a few here in San Diego that still provide some sort of business development. And one of the things that the Indian Human Resource did was to establish a program at Balboa Park, California Indian Days, which would bring together many artisans from various tribal nations to come into San Diego with their arts and crafts to establish a small business venture where they would sell their arts and crafts at a kind of a powwow, but yet not a powwow, a cultural gathering, so that any money that they would make during that period of time, a 2-day period, they could keep, thereby enhancing their business development and also being able to make money while they were here in San Diego. We worked with the city of San Diego to create that program. We still exist today. We do have that once a year at Balboa Park. California Indian Days is called. Been called different names throughout the last 40 years. And it does help Indian artisans to be able to make their own money by selling their own arts and crafts during that period of time. And so that's kind of a small economic development program which the Indian Human Resource established back in 1988 and continues to be there to this day. And we try to, as Indians that have had experience in urban development, try to find ways that we can have our own people, the Indian people, learn how to assimilate into the mainstream of society through business development, through social development, through spiritual development, by utilizing the white experience that we run into during our growth, to make sure that as Indian people that we are a part of the community, that we have grown with the community and we're contributors to the community in some way. So that's how the urban areas, the major cities across Indian country have grown with the inclusion of Indians as a part of that growth, business development, entrepreneurs, spiritual growth, economic growth, and it continues to take place now. Hopefully, within a few years, we'll be able to point at some place in San Diego or Los Angeles and say, right there is the Indian community. Right now, we don't have an Indian community. We are scattered all over San Diego. We're scattered all over Los Angeles, like the Mexican Americans, the African Americans, who have their own communities, the Asians who have their own communities, the American Indian, Native American does not have a community. We all live separately in different suburbs of Los Angeles and San Diego. And but we all come together in a powwow setting to bring together our culture, our spirituality, and our traditions so that we don't lose them and we continue to grow in that way. due to the COVID-19 pandemic, we're not able to do that this year, but hopefully that will go away. Everybody will be cleansed, everybody will be healed, and we'll be able to come together again in a power setting or in a tribal setting and bring back our songs, our dances, our spirituality, and create other programs will bring us together as a people.
And if anyone has a question, if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask.
Were we live?
Yeah.
Anybody have any questions?
So, if there's no questions, then you can, do your closing thank yous and we'll call it a day.
Mm-hmm. I want to thank the American Indian House Center for taking the time out to do some of these documentaries to kind of tell what the urban experience has been with American Indians as they make the transition from rural and reservation life to urban life, where we gain the urban experience of this society. We know that we have to incorporate the white world into our lives so that we can learn how to make that adjustment to society. But we still have to retain our rich spirituality, our rich traditions, and our rich culture. We got to make sure that stays intact because we as a people need to know that, we need to remember that, and we need to live that. And so these documentaries kind of tell the story of how things were created, why we're here, how we continue to be a part of the urban experience, how we made that transition, how we assimilated, and how we are a part of the society. And so we continue to be that, and hopefully we'll be able to come together again after this pandemic has gone away. I hope.
Okay.